I'm 67 and my eyes have slowly gone down the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years. I've been wearing readers, but in the last year, my eyes have really gotten bad, much worse. In the last year, particularly at seeing at distance. So in the last year, I went to the eye doctor, and that was my first time. He kind of got on to me about you ought to go more than once every 66 years. And shortly after that, we had something take place that I'm going to share about tonight, something at our church. But first, so this was one of the quotes that John was talking about, a couple of quotes from Darwin talking about the eye. He said, to suppose that the eye, with all its inimitable, means, defying imitation, contrivances for adjusting the focus to different distances, which is what I'm having trouble with, for admitting different amount of lights, and for the correction of spherical and chromatic aberration, could have been formed by natural selection, seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest degree. And it is absurd to think that this could have just happened by chance. The eye is so intricate with so many different parts that have to work together. And the problem that I am having is this lens back here. I don't know if you can see the lens just behind the pupil is hardening. And as it hardens, I don't have cataracts yet. It's not to that point, but it's not adjusting to the different distances. So the first doctor wasn't a lot of help, other than told me, well, you need better reader glasses, but couldn't correct my distance. Well, that was fine till right before Christmas. We had at our church, we had a movie night. And it was a movie in which the person, the character of the movie, was going to be attending with it. And this was a Dr. Ming Wong. And it was about sight. And so I wanted to just share with you just briefly his testimony and a little bit about him. He grew up in China, and during the Cultural Revolution, he was in the 9th grade when they were no longer allowed to go to school, go to have books. They had to took their books away from them. And his parents were both medical doctors, and that's what he always wanted to be. Well, after the revolution was over and they were allowed to go back to school, he had missed all of high school, but they were given a test to see who would qualify to go on to college, even though he didn't have high school. And his parents gave him 2 months of teaching of all high school in the 2 months, and he qualified, one of only 4 out of over 1 million in his province that were selected to go to college. So he got to go to college, and he went to America. He got his doctorate in laser physics at MIT, then went to Harvard and got a medical degree. So he is trained in both lasers, physics, and in eyes. Well, it happened that he was talking to one of his professors at Harvard, and he had driven up in a car, and he didn't, of course, believe in God at all. He had no knowledge of God, but the professor asked him, he says, "You see that car you just drove up in?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "Do you think all of those parts, like I'm showing here, could have just come together by natural processes and formed that car?" And he said, "No, that would be absurd." He said, "Well, what about the eye? Could all the chemicals have just come together, form the DNA to form all the delicacies of the eye that you've been studying?" And he said a light went on. He just realized there must be a God. This couldn't happen by chance. That's impossible. He's right. And he became a believer. And in fact, in one of the movies in America that is called God Is Not Dead, they have a Chinese character that's playing his part in his testimony of that salvation experience. So this movie was about his life, and then his starting an eye practice. Well, this week I went and saw him, my wife and I both, and basically they looked at my eyes and said, yes, the lens is not to the point of being cataract, but what we can do is we go in, we laser cut into it, and then remove that lens and will install a contacts lens. And what that will do will give me very good vision. With distance, it will slightly improve your reading. But the nice thing is that your reading will never change because that lens will always be in there. They haven't made yet a pliable lens that could be inserted that would adjust like our God designed lens. They haven't yet perfected, they're not as good as God yet, to where it would move and then I get a choice. I can have good vision at distance, or they can put a lens in that I can have good distance at reading. But to do both, you have to give some things up, like peripheral vision, depth perception, that type of thing. So that's what I'm looking at doing. But it just reminded me of how brilliant God is in his design and how the eye, despite what Darwin says, can be used to take someone that brilliant and that intelligent and make him realize, oh, that can't happen by chance.